You've got an idea for a product. Maybe you've been sitting on it for years. Maybe it hit you last week and you haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Either way, you're convinced you know this thing could sell. I'm not here to talk you out of it, but I am here to show you what actually happens between that moment and the moment your product is sitting on a retail shelf, because most people have no idea. And that gap, that's where dreams go to die. Welcome to the Crucible. This is a series about one thing: taking a product from idea to retail shelf. The real process, not the highlight reel. Not the version where everything works out perfectly and someone hands you a purchase order over a nice lunch. The actual thing. I want to walk you through every step: how you find an idea worth pursuing, how you test it before you spend $1, how you find a manufacturer, build your brand, structure your pricing, get it in front of a buyer, survive the pitch, land on shelf, and then stay there. Because getting on shelf is one thing. Staying there is another conversation entirely. We're going to talk about what buyers actually care about, which is almost never what you think it is. We're going to talk about the math behind retail, because if the numbers don't work, nothing else matters. And we're going to talk about the mistakes I've watched people make over and over again, so you don't have to make them yourself. This series is for anyone who has a product idea and doesn't know where to start. You don't need a background in retail. You don't need industry connections. You just need to be willing to do the work and to be honest with yourself along the way. That last part is more important than you'd think. Before I go any further, you don't know me, and you shouldn't just take what I say at face value. So let me be upfront about where I'm coming from. I've spent 16 years in this industry, and I mean in it, not adjacent to it, not consulting from the outside. I've been in the room, sitting across the table from buyers at some of the biggest retail companies in the world, Fortune 50, Fortune 100. I've worked with distributors, rep agencies, and independent retailers across the United States and Canada, across multiple product categories and multiple channels. I've done this hundreds of times, hundreds of pitches. Some of them went really well. Some of them were humbling in ways I still think about. And what I've learned from all of it, the wins and the losses, is that the difference between a product that makes it and a product that doesn't almost never comes down to the idea itself. It comes down to the process. I'm not going to name the companies I've worked with. That's not what this is. What this is me pulling back the curtain on how this industry actually works in a way that most insiders never do. Because I think more people deserve to know this stuff. And I think the people who have great ideas but no industry connections deserve a real shot. So that's what we're doing here. Let's get into it. All right, let's talk about the thing that kills more product ideas than anything else. And it's not a bad idea, it's not bad timing, it's not even a bad market. It's skipping the most important step in the whole process. Here's a story I've seen play out more times than I can count. Someone has an idea, they're fired up, they start designing it, they spend months, sometimes years refining it, tweaking it, obsessing over it. They get quotes from manufacturers, they hire a designer to build out the branding, they might even place an order, and then they try to sell it, and nothing happens. Not because the idea was bad, sometimes it's actually a solid idea, but because they never asked the one question that actually matters before any of that. Will someone who doesn't know me pay money for this? Not, do my friends like it? Not, did my spouse say it sounds cool? Those people love you. They are biologically motivated to be nice to you. They are the worst possible test group you could ever choose. I mean a stranger, someone with zero emotional investment in whether you succeed. Someone who will vote with their wallet or they won't. That's the only vote that counts. So what does it actually look like to test an idea? Because I think people here validate your idea and they picture some formal research process that costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time. It doesn't have to be that. Eric Ries wrote about this in The Lean Startup, the idea that your job isn't to build a perfect product before you test it. Your job is to learn as fast as possible whether anyone actually wants it. He calls it the minimum viable product, the smallest version of your idea that lets you get real feedback from real people. And the feedback you want isn't a compliment, it's a transaction. Here's what that can look like in practice. Maybe you build a rough prototype and take it to a local market or a trade show and see if people stop and ask about it, and more importantly, if they buy it. Maybe you throw together a simple landing page with a pre-order option and run $50 in social ads to it. If people click through and put in their credit card information for a product that doesn't fully exist yet, That's a signal. Maybe you list a small run on Etsy or Amazon and see what happens. The Jake Knapp book, Sprint, takes this even further. The team at Google Ventures built a whole 5-day framework for testing ideas with real people before building anything. 5 days. It's a great read if you want a structured approach. The point isn't the format. The point is that you are getting your idea in front of people who have no reason to be kind to you, and you are watching what they actually do, not what they say, what they do. Because people will tell you your idea is great and then not buy it every single time. What matters is the transaction. Now, if your goal is specifically to get into retail, I want to add one more layer to this because the bar is higher. When you're selling directly to a consumer, online, at a market, wherever, you just have to convince that one person. And if your pitch isn't perfect, you can adjust on the fly. You can drop the price, you can reframe it, you can try something different tomorrow. Retail doesn't work like that. When you walk into a buyer meeting, and we're going to do a whole episode on buyer meetings, you're pitching to someone who makes decisions for potentially thousands of store locations, and they are going to ask you things that will immediately reveal whether you've done your homework. They're going to ask about velocity, which means how many units do you expect to sell per store per week? And they don't want your best guess, they want data. They're going to ask about margin. Can they make enough money on your product to justify giving it shelf space? Because shelf space isn't free. Every inch of that shelf is a business decision. They're going to ask what you're doing to drive traffic. Are you running ads? Do you have a social presence? Is there a marketing plan that actually pulls customers into the store? And here's the thing, if you haven't tested your idea, you can't answer any of those questions with any credibility. You're guessing, and buyers have been doing this long enough that they can tell the difference between someone with real data and someone who's hoping the conversation goes well. Testing your idea isn't just smart. For retail specifically, it's the foundation. You can't build on top of it until it's solid. Okay, let's make this concrete. If I were starting from scratch today with a product idea and zero retail experience, here's exactly how I'd approach the test. Step 1, get really specific about who I'm selling to. Not anyone who needs this. That's not a customer, that's a wish. I want to know exactly who the person is who is most likely to buy this product. How old are they? Where do they shop? What problem are they trying to solve? What else do they buy that's similar? The tighter I can define that person, the better everything else gets. Step 2, build the minimum version of the pitch, not the full brand, not the final packaging, just enough to communicate what the product does and why someone should care. A 1-page sales sheet, a simple landing page, a decent photo, and a clear description, that's it. Step 3, get it in front of real people. Go where your customer already is, sell at a market, run a small ad, post it somewhere. The goal is eyeballs from the right people, not everyone, the right people. Step 4, track everything. How many people saw it? How many stopped or clicked? How many actually bought? That conversion rate from interest to purchase is one of the most valuable early signals you have. Pay attention to it. And step 5, be ruthlessly honest about what the data is telling you. This is the hard one because if it's not working, it's tempting to explain it away. The weather was bad, the ad wasn't targeted right, people just didn't understand it yet. Maybe the idea needs work, and that's okay. Finding that out now, before a manufacturing order, before a full brand build, before a buyer meeting, is the whole point. This process isn't exciting. It's not the fun part of building a product, but I promise you, it is the most important part. Here's where I want to leave you with episode 1. Retail is unforgiving. It doesn't make room for products that haven't earned their place. The founders I've watched succeed, the ones who got on shelf and stayed there, they all did this part. They tested before they built. They learned before they spent. They built on real data instead of hope and gut feeling. That's not a knock on gut feeling. Gut feeling is what gets you to the idea. Data is what gets you to the shelf. Test your idea before the branding, before the manufacturer, before any of it. In the next episode, we're going to talk about how to find the right idea in the first place, how to look at a market the way a buyer looks at it and spot the gaps that actually have room for something new. If this was worth your time, subscribe. There's a lot more coming, and we're just getting started.